Greetings, Warlords. Rodge here. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the skirmish miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. Today I am joined by Tristan. Tristan, how's it going, man?
Doing fine, doing fine. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. We are going to be discussing the Iberians from Age of Hannibal today. Now, folks might know you as O'Shannon on the Discord server, painting up some lovely Greek Spartans. But apparently you had another army, probably ready to go in the meantime, maybe while you're working on that long project. Um, are these, how are the Iberians working out for you?
Well, pretty well. I mean, obviously, are very different faction than Spartans. Not that resilient, more squishy, so very different
Mm-hmm.
play style. But yeah, started them to basically have a faction for each age, so also one for Age of Hannibal. And yeah, I have been playing them for several months now, many games, tournaments on, and really enjoyed them.
Awesome. Now, do you get over to the German Grand Melee and the Benelux and the Dutch events and stuff? Are you going to all those?
Yeah, like I mean, I'm blessed in the way that I live in an area where there's a lot of
You're
tournaments. Like
lucky,
the
man.
tabletop scene here is pretty dense, and so I mean, the club that I am in organizes tournaments. But yeah, I've been now at the Benelux Grand Melee with the Iberians, and I mean, I don't know when the German one will be. Probably late this year. Not sure which ages, but yeah, plan to attend that one again as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So jealous of having a bunch of dudes running great events. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Definitely helps with the painting morale, knowing there's good events to take your boys to. So, are you just using the Victrix models for these guys? I think maybe
Yes,
I
I
saw
am. I
something.
mean, I was looking around like which model options are out there, and yeah, like um, I mean, I would sometimes experiment with some 3D prints or some specific models for some armies, but with this one, the goal was also to paint them quite fast, and I went with the Victorix ones. I mean, they're a bit older now, the set, I think, but it still works out very well. I use some other slings because, well, one equipment option is slings for the warriors, but that's
Hmm.
not in the set. But after a while, with several armies, you have so many bits around that you get them. Either you have
Yeah.
them or some friends have them.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's get into those equipment options, shall we? So, up top, we got the Warlord. It can be mounted on a horse or a no equipment option. The Hearthguards are mounted on horses. They must be
Hmm.
mounted. Um, Warriors can be equipped with slings, like you say, or have no equipment options. They can also be mounted on horses, but you can't have more mounted warriors than you have figures on foot. Lastly, the levies are equipped with javelins. Now, are you taking those warrior slings? So the shooter warriors, we all know in the game of Saga, not the best option. You usually need a little Saga ability help or a board. Something about the board makes them a little more enticing. Is that the case with Iberians?
I mean, obviously, if the faction would allow you to take levy with bows or slings, you would definitely take those.
Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, I usually also take warriors with slings. It's usually a mix, so I take like around 3 points, and then it's a mix of well, no equipment, but also one or two units that have slings. Usually not that big, actually, like 7-man
Okay.
units to have like 4 attack die and shooting. But yeah, I think it's necessary to have a bit of a threat at a longer distance than M with
Hmm.
shooting.
Something to entice the opponent.
Mhm.
Are you taking the obligatory point of Hearthguard or more or none? Or just living off your wits, keeping the
Yeah,
warlord alive?
I take 1.5 points. Like with I mean, the 1.5 point or half point rules now implemented since I don't know a year or two and very established. And I think with this faction, like 1.5 points of Hearthguard is the way to go. I've heard also from some people that they take 3 points of Hearthguard and then split in 2 times 6. But yeah, for me, it's one unit of 6.
Mm-hmm. You take mounted warriors as well? Have that option, or?
Yeah, I tried that, but I'm not that convinced, actually. I mean, when we go to the board, there's one basically key ability that comes to cavalry, but
give some dudes a ride.
For me, actually, Hearthguard are a bit better option when it comes to mounted, because you need the warriors with the slings, and also one maybe that with no equipment that can maybe deal with one melee. But yeah.
Okay. And then for the levies, are you sneaking in a point or two there, or how do you like to squeeze them in?
Yeah, so 1 point for sure. And as I said, like usually it's 1.5 point of Hearthguard, and then often I take 1.5 point of levy actually, so 2 times 9. Also experienced a bit with like 2 points of levy. That can work as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think any levies are good levies usually.
Yeah, for sure.
Any configuration works out pretty well for them. All right, cool. Well, that'll give us a little basis for our discussion here with those various troops in mind. We can move on. Now, they do not have the activation pool. Still got combat bonus, but they swapped in this ability called guerrilla. Mm-hmm. So fortunately in 2023 here, the Hannibal boards received a pretty hefty FAQ. And they say, unfortunately for the Iberians, as they were weakened in several, well, at least in this ability. I guess I don't know for sure how the other ones work, but so this is an activation and reactivation, or activation reaction, sorry. So this is basically the secret sauce of the board here. You trigger this ability after enemy's activation has been resolved. Discard 2 guerrilla markers to activate one of your non-mercenary units for a shooting, or 3 markers to discard 3 for any other type of activation. Each unit can only be activated once per turn for guerrilla. So I think that bottom one is kind of a key point, keeping the madness in check, maybe. So I think the difference is the 2 and the 3. It was just 2 last time. So
yeah, it was 2 before for everything, and now it's only 2 for shooting, 3 for any other activation.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get into how many guerrilla markers are you usually having to play with, just kind of on average.
I would say that on a usual turn, at least you gain those in the in your own turn, and then you play them usually in the opponent's turn. There's some exceptions to that, but usually I would say 6, 7 markers you can gain.
6 or 7. So you're going from, with this fact change, to maybe 3 or 4 activations to 2 or 3, kind of depending on what you want to do. Okay. Yeah, like you said, the guerrilla markers, we'll get into those. The abilities on your battle board will generate these for you. And so can they be carried forward from turn to turn? They're going to be wiped.
Yes, exactly. You lose them all at the end of the opponent's turn. In theory, there's also a cap of 10, which you rarely go to. And even, in theory, it's possible to play 1 or 2 activation reactions, and then with you have one ability later where you can also gain in the opponent's turn some guerrilla markers in theory. But if you never go over the cap of 10, that's fine. And usually the cap doesn't really matter that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the way this works, trigger this after an enemy's activation has been resolved. So you'll always, you'll always have a chance to use them. Some activation reactions, your opponent can be like, I'm done now. Your turn.
Yeah, it might be that you're left maybe with 1 or 2 because, there's no shooting possible anymore or something. And with 1, you cannot do anything except, some exceptions, but not with the guerrilla one. So that might happen. but usually, well, you should try to use most of them because it's activations. So
It's what you're doing, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. It doesn't require a Saga die to trigger, so that's pretty rare on Saga battle boards. Something that doesn't actually require Saga dice. I can't think offhand anything that works like that. I personally think the Yams Vikings, the Wrath abilities should work like that, in my humble opinion, because you got to pay Saga dice and the Wrath. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, you always need to have that one Saga die, like in case the opponent chooses to give you Wrath. So yeah.
So the interesting thing here is activation pool is not around. Would you have rather had activation pool and then have guerrilla in place of combat bonus? Or
yes.
Would you rather have... Okay.
I mean, obviously, I guess the good answer is it depends, but yeah, in 99% of the cases, I would take the activation pool. Because when we go through the whole board, like most Age of Hannibal boards, often you have abilities that where one specific dice facing is required, where it's not like 2 or all 3. So when you have like, I don't know, just 5 or 6 Saga die, and then you roll maybe not ideal. Sometimes you're just not able to make the plays you want to do.
Sure.
And another thing that I notice is that I think it's important to start with 7 Saga dice, not with only 6 or something, just because of you are not able to gain any more. So yeah, I realized it basically in the first game with them that, yeah, I'm missing the activation pool.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, most any warband, first couple turns, you're probably going to get one. And, half the boards might just top up to the 8 dice or 7 or 8. And, in some boards, drowning in rares, successors take that all day. But maybe this isn't one of those. I guess we'll see as we go along here what the rares can do for you.
Yep.
So let's jump into the first one here, up top left. Now, I haven't worked with these dice before. The Gauls and Iberians, I think they both use these dice. Is that right?
I'm not sure about the Gauls. I think the Gauls...
Do they have their own?
Could be. Yeah, could actually be. I think it's also the Numidians.
Numidians, okay. I guess I have seen them before. All right, so it looks to me like these horses are the uncommons. Is that
correct?
True?
Yes, 2 uncommons.
Right. 2 uncommons. Now, this is pretty close as expensive as it gets in the game. Saga, really, yeah. Before we get to a rare. Remove a fatigue from every friendly unit within medium of your warlord. Gain 1 guerrilla marker for each fatigue you removed. Right, so that's pretty good. Unlike the Viking ability, it's got the friendly unit only. That's what you're paying the extra dice is for, so the enemy doesn't benefit. Okay, and you gain a guerrilla marker. So, I don't know. Is this a good way to get guerrilla markers? Are there better ways to do it?
I mean, there are situations when it's very good. I mean, as you said, it's quite pricey. So, and without an activation pool, having 2 uncommons, and I mean, obviously you need uncommons not just for this one. So
that's a good point. Yeah, it's 25% of your dice at the best. It could be a third or half.
Exactly. I like sometimes when I start the game to, in the first turn when you're maybe the second player, that I place a dice here without really playing the ability in the turn, just for having it. And usually, let's say in a normal game, I play this ability once or twice, and it's actually quite good. It's pricey, but if you load it up in the beginning when you may not need activations that much in the first turn, can be worth it to save it for later. Because, well, first of all, you don't have to play it at the beginning. It's not... you don't have to do it at the beginning before activation or something. It's not resting, so you can do it after all the activations you did.
After the fight, the Hearthguard,
So, kind of a common strategy, I would say, is to move forward, make some shooting, some damage, and then fall back to your warlord out of range from the opponent, and then play this because you gain then usually 2 fatigue, maybe 3 because of another one. And something else that I like to do is when the warlord at the beginning of the turn was outside of L, so he could actually maneuver. So that you maneuver him just for having a maneuver, then use determination so he gets 1 fatigue before using second wind, because you also remove it with this, and you get 1 guerrilla marker kind of for free. So
so it's not gain a guerrilla marker for each unit within medium, it's for each fatigue you removed. So you little cheeky fellow.
Well, with the kind of nerfs that happened, you have to fight for every guerrilla marker, and that's one way to do it, right?
Awesome. Yeah, definitely a ton of potential here. I think so you use kind of like a mixed shooting melee, so you have options here. I think I've seen other people lean more into the shooting maybe, and so this is a great one for getting those fatigues off the double activated shooters.
Yes, true as well.
Lovely for going into fighting some melees. Pop this at the end, I'm clear. Sticking warriors with armor 4 or 5.
Yes,
they just last a lot longer if your opponent's not taking their armor down with fatigue. So a lot of potential here, pretty pricey. And I like your thoughts about loading it up. If you don't have activation pool, you're never going to kick yourself in the butt for like missing it. Like, could have got some free dice.
Yeah, because if you're maybe lost a unit or something, then you just have like 5 or 6 dice, and then playing a 2 die ability, that's quite pricey. And often you cannot afford that. You need to do other stuff. And
once the enemy is with that medium across the line, you're like, what do I?
Yeah, you cannot wait anything, not anymore. You need to go into action.
Awesome. Well, very cool. Yeah, definitely could be a really huge bang for your 2 dice there.
Yes, for sure.
What's the most fatigues you've removed using this?
I mean, like 4 or something. So often it's 3, but 4 as well, and that's definitely worth it. I mean, you usually need like 2 dice for resting even. But I mean, you're so flexible, so you can do it at the end of the turn. So just this flexibility is worth a lot. And then gaining in addition the guerrilla markers, and I mean, 2 or 3 guerrilla markers is basically another free activations. So for sure worth it then.
We can talk. Yeah, as guerrilla ideas kind of pop in your head as we go along. But you're just thinking, if you're just trying to get rid of fatigues, if you get 3 guerrilla markers, that is a rest in your opponent's turn.
True.
So if you combine that with this, a unit with 2 fatigues, just using this ability, slough 3 between a couple of units.
Yep.
You could get those guerrilla markers and rest on your opponent's turn, and get 2 off of like a Hearthguard or your warlord, or those overactivated 7 slingers doing a lot of slinging. So if you're going for pure fatigue management, great ability.
Yep.
Right. Let's go down to bait. So I believe this one has been fact.
Yes.
Don't know what the difference is, but it's activation using a common, gain 1 guerrilla marker. Then designate one of your units that generates a saga die. So a little bit of a qualifier there, gain 1 extra marker for each enemy unit with an S of this unit. Maximum 4. So this is just pure markers, baby.
Yes,
doesn't do anything.
The markers. It's only for the markers. So for that, it's really worth it. You need to be able to be at least, I don't know, I think you need to gain at least 3 guerrilla markers with this, or that it's worth the die. But usually that's also possible. So you gain 1 just by simply playing it on 1 unit, and then you need to be close to 2 opponent units, which is usually possible, and that's also what, for instance, the Hearthguard unit is for, before pulling them back then. So I play that. It's kind of the game plan, and I play that almost all the time.
Sure.
But yeah, it's weaker than before. So before it was not a requirement that you need to generate still a Saga die, that unit, and I think it was before medium instead of short. So
and then max of 4, it's like a triple. Three limitations were added to
yeah,
it.
so
must have
now
been some bonsai levy going in the middle of the opponent's army or something.
exactly. Before it was very important for the opponent to really kill that last levy, because otherwise it wasn't. He was in the middle of action and gained like 4, 5, 6 guerrilla markers. But now it needs to be kind of a still fighting unit, at manpower and so on.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you spend a die, you get 3 markers, 2, 3, or 4. So you're really just trading an activation for this turn to go in the opponent's turn. Kind of, kind of depends on your guerrilla markers. You might be adding enough to get an extra 1. Going from 5 to 6 or something gives you more options.
Yeah.
Than being at 5. So. Yeah, do you like run in, pop it, and then run away? Is that something you would ever do?
It's kind of the strategy that you use the big unit of Hearthguard and another unit to go very close to the opponent, shoot with an ability we will check out later, or with the levy that has Javelin, and then pull back. And while you're there, you also play bait, because when you're there anyway. So
might as well.
And usually the guerrilla activation reaction, I mean, it's one activation, but having all these markers there also messes up with the whole strategy of the opponent. They need to think about, okay, where he will play it, what he will do with it. And in addition to that, usually they're also all, because it's the first activation in the opponent's turn, they're all fatigue free. So
yeah,
they're very good activations, let's say.
It's a trade, but like you said, so having abilities where you can activate any unit are quite powerful in Saga.
Yep.
Flexibility, just activation reactions are quite powerful in Saga. You can activate the levies with the comment. Essentially, you just have more options trading this dice for your.
He doesn't know if
turn.
I attack, I shoot, I move, I rest. Can be in theory used for everything. So the flexibility often messes up with the opponent, but it also requires from the Iberian player to really know the boards of the opponent, of how they can move, how far they can move, and so on. It's key.
This could be. Usually, you get a break in your opponent's turn from your thinking, and you just keep going with Iberia. Yeah.
Yes, actually, there's some games where most of the game, let's say 80% of the game, is in the opponent's turn, because there's when he plays, but also where you play, like 50% of your game is in that turn. So yeah, kind of funny.
That's cool. All right. So one thing I want to bring up, we haven't really mentioned it. So my perception, maybe this comes from Monty, I know he ran these guys for a while, that this is a board that really likes terrain. Do you?
Yes and no. So we will see with another ability later that was changed. I mean, yeah, like it's kind of, I mean, the whole guerrilla says it all. They're very squishy. They like to, it's a bit hit and run. So yeah, when you usually don't complain about more terrain, especially having it in the middle where either you're shooting units like the one with slings, the warriors can stay in and are a bit more, well, not invulnerable, but not that easy to attack by the opponent's cavalry or something. So you don't benefit that much from it, but like with the abilities, especially with the good ones. But yeah, usually you like to use like hard cover and place it like on your side with 1 or 2 units in there. Also thinking about that some of the other factions may not like terrain that much. in Hannibal, but
Sure.
especially
Yeah.
Alexander.
In ancients, yeah, it's not that you enjoy it so much. It's just
Yeah,
that the
just the
enemy
others don't
hates
like it
it.
even less. So yeah, exactly. So usually you try to place as much as you can until the opponent stops with placing terrain. So
Okay.
yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think if you're running shooters, terrain is
Hmm.
always good for those guys, especially your warriors, slingers. You want to
Yeah.
try to limit the opportunities for the enemy to engage them. Ability like this, kind of why I brought it up. It's easier to get within S
Hmm.
safely, maybe, if there's a big piece of terrain and, you're there, you don't have to scooch because
Yep.
he's mounted guys or he's phalanx or he doesn't really want to go in there. So it gives you a few more opportunities. But like you said, you're running some mounted guys too, so
Hmm.
um, don't really disrupt those guys necessarily.
Yeah, but usually its terrain is fine. Like you can handle that
Mm-hmm.
better than most other factions. So you don't
Cool.
complain about it. And it's in scenarios where, let's say, the middle of the board is pretty empty. Usually you don't like them that much. So
All right. Well, let's pop down to the next one. Like shadows here, it's
mhm.
Order's reaction requiring an uncommon die. Once during each melee or shooting attack initiated by an enemy during this turn, instead of using a Saga ability, you can spend one guerrilla marker to discard 2 of your opponent's attack dice. Wow, that's pretty cool. Um, can't use it on your turn. I think I'm starting to get why you're saying you do more stuff on the other guy's turn. Maybe
Yep.
there's an ability here that is basically doing that for you. Um, yeah, I really hate it when my opponent gets rid of my attack dice. For some reason, it's one of the most aggravating things in Saga. I don't know what it is. That Frank's Moon ability. Just hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it so much. So you could replicate. Um,
I mean, the limitation is that you can just do it once during a
that
melee.
was my
So it's just,
question. Yeah, is it once per combat or like
yeah,
once
once
circle
per
back around?
melee or shooting attack. So
Okay.
you cannot
Yeah, and
save like 3 or 4 and then basically take all the saga
yeah.
die or something,
So
all the
that's
attack
quite
die.
clear. Yeah, it says right here once during each melee or shooting. Okay, so um, yeah, if they're going from 16 to 14, not
Yeah.
not the best, but if they towards the end of the game, I'm assuming, yeah, the best he can muster is 4 or 6. Knocking 2 off that can be pretty decent. Got to spend the uncommon for it. Got to have the guerrilla markers ready to go with no other
Mhm.
plan. So is this getting some action or not?
Rarely. I mean, first of all, it's an uncommon that you have to spend for it, and then you also
Mm-hmm.
kind of spend your guerrilla markers, which you otherwise would use in for activations or something else. So it's cost quite a lot. And um, I thought about, well, maybe because I don't have any other real reaction to shooting, that, well, okay, taking 2 attack dice away. But actually, the best way to deal with enemy shooting is just stay out of range.
Just
Like,
get that guy. Just move
yeah,
away. Yeah.
move them out of range. Like, I mean, for instance, if your Hearthguard gets shot with like from levy and you get 6 attack die, like also 4 attack die will hurt. Like each Hearthguard that will die basically hurts a lot. Just move them out of range.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I use it sometimes, as you said, like maybe in the end of a game when. But you first of all also need to gain all these guerrilla markers. So tricky. It's tricky. It's not very bad, but I don't use it that often, I have to say.
Sure. You'd have to see, there's some reason your unit has to be in a specific spot, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe objective type
Yes,
stuff.
exactly.
This is the turn. I'm not going to move. I know you're coming for me. I've got whatever. I'm going to pop this. I got 5 guerrilla markers. I'm not going to use them for anything else because I need to stick here and survive or something like that.
Yeah.
You need to pop this, kind of 3 or 4 times, IMO to really make it
Exactly, because
that
just for
uncommon.
once or twice, it's basically the combat bonus is usually better choice, I would say. And yeah, it's tricky, but I mean, we are now at the third ability, and basically, I think there's no other ability that gives you any kind of defense dice or something. So
Okay.
that's all you get
This is
for
it. All right.
defending.
We'll keep that in mind. All right. Well, let's go down. Coordination. This one was, I believe this was fact in 2021 and was carried forward or not. I don't know if you did.
It's just a very tiny difference, but
The research here. Okay, I gotta blow this up here. Choose Hearthguards or Warriors mounted and infantry with an S. There cannot be more than twice as many figures in an infantry unit as the cav. Activate these 2 units for a move, starting with the cav. Infantry unit gains the mount horses special rule. Must end its movement with an S of the mounted unit. So they're picking up their buddies. And after these have been completed, gain a here's a guerrilla marker. Here, take that. So common or uncommon. So activating 2 units for a common is pretty good, especially get some guys moving. Now it looks like it's just a movement, right?
Yep, it's only movement, but
we're not that
for a common, you move 2 units, you get 1 guerrilla marker. And I mean, yeah, they have to be within short, but also the infantry unit also moves L. So yeah, can't complain for a single dive.
That's cool. Yeah. So can it be more than twice as many figures infantry unit? So your 6-man Hearthguard could pick up 12 levy.
Yeah, they can pick all units up with that.
Those are loaded. Those are some loaded horses.
True.
Bad for them, but it's just temporary.
Yeah.
So
that's for 1 move.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, probably just use it whenever you're in the open. Probably, yeah. Every turn you need to do some moves.
Yeah, I use that almost every turn, I would say. I mean, even if you don't want to move that far, just you get the guerrilla markers and you get the 2 activations of movement, so that's already worth it. And I mentioned before, so the plan is often to take the Hearthguard unit and then 1 other unit, either, well, it can be the levy with the javelin or the warriors without equipment, to bring them very close to the opponent, or the other way around to bring them back. So yeah, that's why I play them every turn. But you need to take care of your Hearthguard, obviously. If they're just 1 or 2 man Hearthguard left, they cannot carry that much anymore. So you need to take care of them.
That's cool. Yeah, it's very solid ability. Yeah, it kind of entices you to take a horse unit, where you otherwise or maybe questionable on. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Cards are
you need to do a bit be careful during deployment or when you plan to use that ability in the next turns, that, well, you have to use first the Hearthguard or the mounted unit. So that the ones don't block you where you actually want to go. So you need to coordinate that a little.
Sure, yeah, depending who wants to screen who.
Exactly.
That might be annoying.
So it's not that good if, I don't know, during deployment, some people like to, I don't know, cover the Hearthguard with the warrior unit or something. But then, well, with that one, it doesn't work anymore because you block them, basically.
Yeah. Sorry with the caveat. Yeah, so you can't screen the Hearthguard with the levy jav.
Yeah, or you have to, not
put
them
really. Side by side, kind of, Got it. Some nuance there. Yeah, fair. Good ability, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Very
really
cool.
Good.
Very thematic.
Yes.
This is the one me and Monty talked about all those years ago when Hannibal came out and we were previewing stuff. Got a giggle out of it.
I mean, it's always nice to have in every board to have kind of multi-activations, like for 1 die to activate multiple units. And I mean, obviously there's some limitations to it, but it's so good still, even without the guerrilla marker, but obviously you take that.
Juicy. All right. At the bottom here, we've got Falata, melee, attacker only. So when you attack, the enemy suffer a -1. And this is the rare, right?
Yes. I think it's the first time actually that we see the rare.
And it's to their defense dice. Okay. That's interesting. Wow. Yeah. Saving on 6s and it really is the one rolling defense dice. You do not want this happening to you.
True.
And anytime I can get this, it's not very common in Saga to affect the enemy's defense dice.
Yes.
But if you can get this, you take it, because your chance of your opponent getting lucky and all of a sudden just saving a boatload just kind of drops down to virtually nil. I mean, they could still roll a bunch of 6s. And obviously takes the sting off the enemy closing ranks. Is it worth a rare to you, good sir?
Well, I would say yes. With the whole warband, it's mostly about shooting, and so you really have to be very selective in the melees you choose. Because obviously after a melee you have fatigue, and then it might be difficult to go back, out of charge distance and shooting distance and all these things. So you need to really be selective and careful with which melees you choose. But yeah, I've played that several times. It's limited attacker only, but usually I use it with the Hearthguard, actually. Maybe not at the beginning of the game, but in the later stages. So 12 attacks with a -1 penalty. If then the opponent is really not able to close ranks, so just being able to save on 6s, it's so good. Because also if he even has abilities with additional defense die, they're not worth that much anymore.
Yeah, they're like, pop all those. I don't care. Yeah, they're just barely doing anything. Yeah, this is pretty tasty, and it's interesting though because it is a rare, so we don't have activation pool. So there's actually, I see 2 other abilities, and combat bonus is kind of
there's actually not that many where you place rares.
Just activating units or something if you really have so many. So yeah, I would take this over combat bonus at least any day.
Yeah, like if you plan to attack, it's so good. Like, I mean, there's another place where I think the first rare goes, but sometimes, a bit with second wind, depending on what you roll in the first turn, sometimes I just place it to have it maybe in the later turns. But yeah, nothing to say. -1 to penalty to the defense die of the opponent is simply good. And there's actually, I figured that out in the tournament, there's kind of a nice... the Carthaginians actually have one ability where each 6 that they roll.
Oh yeah, it's impossible.
2.
It's impossible to get a 6.
Basically, you can play that, but you cannot roll a 6 anymore. So that's a kind of nice combo then, or something to keep in mind.
Carthage.
And
there's a Merc unit too, where if they save on 6s or something, they save an extra 1 or something. It's super annoying.
Yeah. So often it doesn't really matter how you think about dice rolls, if it's like adding 1 or it's -1, but actually, he's not rolling 6s anymore, it's 5s, so that's really important to keep in mind. And with all the guerrilla we have, it's also possible to kind of attack at the end of the opponent's turn, where he may not be able really to react to it anymore, and then you attack and can basically take care of that unit then in your turn with resting, moving away, and so on.
Sure, yeah. We have to talk about the toll on your opponent. After every action, they have to stop and look at you.
Exactly.
You're like just stone cold.
Not yet.
Keep going.
Not yet.
Just keep going. Yeah. Oh, funny. Awesome. Yeah, very cool. Love knocking down defense dice. I can do it. So, all right. Popping up to knowledge of the terrain. And this is activation for another uncommon here. The heck's going on? Choose an area of uneven terrain within very short of one of your units. Till the start of your next turn, your foot units count as open terrain during their moves and charges. So that's pretty cool.
It can be good. Situational.
Does this work with coordination? So the the mounted unit doesn't count it as open, but would the foot unit, could they ride?
No, not really. Because I mean, I also had that question once, but
What's the
they count
sequence
as.
here?
I mean, the infantry unit doesn't move L. They count as having horses or mounts.
Okay,
So
yep.
then it's not a
Yep.
foot unit anymore, and then it doesn't apply.
Gains
But
the mount horses. So
back then, when you were maybe talking with Monty about it, knowledge of the terrain was way better because it was not limited to foot units. So then also the calf could ride straight through the forest and.
oh yeah, so this was a fact one too. Okay, yep. Ah, interesting. So choose till the start of your next turn. So interesting thing, yeah. Last both your turn and your opponent's turn as well. So maybe got to do a lot of movements to get.
Yeah. So I mean,
hang of
it's
this.
one uncommon. I don't use it often, I have to say. I used it actually sometimes for maybe not the intended purpose, but when at the start of the game, when maybe you put 2 units at the very beginning of a terrain piece just to maneuver them, because it counts as being open then for them, so they can maneuver.
Oh, that's cool.
So then it's kind of
that's...
worth, when it's 2 units, use 1 die for it, so then it's really worth it. But during the game, not often, I have to say.
Yeah, so it's cool. It can be used for moves or charges. It can be nice for slogging through those huge forests and fields and stuff. If you do need to get through that, yeah, it can take quite a while to get through there.
Yep.
And yeah, I like that idea of the maneuver because that's usually the downside too of putting troops in those. Is you're like, I got to spend dice on my first turn to get these guys going.
Yep.
But that's cool. So,
and I mean, there's different rules in different scenarios, and I don't know how you guys are doing it in the US, but with this bidding system, which kind of where you determine basically who can select to be or who can choose to be the starting player. With Iberians, you want to be the starting player. It's kind of odd because often the second player has some advantages to be second and so on. But you have to keep in mind that you build up all the guerrilla markers in your turn and then play them in the opponent's turn. So if you're second player, basically there's 1 turn less where you have guerrilla. So
sure, yeah. So your opponent, if you go first, you have to go all the way across the board and then trigger this stuff to get the tokens, and then probably get the heck out of there, some way. First, if your opponent's first, they're coming across, at some point, making it a little easier to close the distance, at least with that, whatever, the debatability. I'm sure you have other ones you could use as well. So, yeah, that makes a good point about, your whole thing is activating your opponent's turn. So having that lined up just in the turn sequence to maximize that makes sense. So everything being even, you might bid a little extra to go second. A little VP point here or there. Well worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite good. But as I say, like, I usually use that one for maneuver, and if you can choose to be first player, I would always go first with this warband, and then use it for maneuvering in the beginning, and yeah.
Sounds good. All right, and just to confirm, units have the objective. I think having the objective penalty overrides this. So you're still moving short, or how do you?
I mean,
how do you guys do it?
They still count as being in terrain then, because
I think
choose an area of uneven terrain, and this area does not really exist. So
okay, yeah.
You can maybe debate it, but I would not play it that way.
Yeah, you're right. All right, pop down, ambush. Gain 2 attack dice for a common or uncommon in melee, and gain a guerrilla marker. Pretty basic here. Pretty stingy on the attack dice here, I gotta say. That's scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as what a saga ability will do for you, but you get that guerrilla marker.
Yeah, it's not outstanding, but it's quite good. I mean, as you said, like for a common, you get 2 attack die. So if you plan to charge, um, it's very good to use. Way better than a combat bonus, and in addition, you get the guerrilla marker. So that's in theory a way to also gain guerrilla markers in the opponent's turn. Still, like if you made the attack in the opponent's turn, you get the guerrilla marker. Yeah, that's also maybe to play or a bit with the mind games of the opponent. Even if you have just 1 guerrilla marker there and he attacks you, well, then maybe you go up to 3 again, and then actually you can move or charge again, which you couldn't before.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have there. I don't play it like every turn, but as I said, like when I think there's a melee coming up, I plan to have a melee. Obviously, also nice with Falata. Like, I mean, if the opponent is not able to defend well, it's even better to put more attack dice in there. So
every attack die on deck for that one.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, solid ability. Down to Falerica.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say it? How do you?
Well, I mean, I do not really know if Falerica, but I don't know what kind of language it originally is. I know that Falcada was a sword. I'm not sure what the Falerica actually means.
It kind of sounds like a sword. It sounds like a weapon or something.
Could be, yeah.
I don't know. I'm being very clear. I know nothing here, but kind of sounds like a weapon.
Well, maybe the viewers can actually clarify.
Enlighten us. I'm in the middle of a faction review. Can't be Googling stuff.
Exactly.
All right. Melee or shooting. For a combat, after a melee or shooting attack is resolved, you gain 1 guerrilla marker for each casualty inflicted on your opponent to maximum of 6. Nice. Now this is a way to get guerrilla markers, baby. Or spend up to 3 guerrilla markers and gain 2 attack. Oh, nice for 2. Oh God. Now this is a way to spend guerrilla markers, baby.
Exactly.
Now we're talking.
It's basically 2 different kinds of abilities that you have there.
That's cool. I love it when they kind of do 2 different things in one saga ability. So this is awesome. Getting a little North scale vibe here, building up my combat bonus kind of with guerrilla markers. Okay, I think either one of these is good, right?
Yeah, I think both. I've played both options several times. I mean, again, with Falcata attacking, like with the Hearthguard, and then basically, if you have the guerrilla markers, getting a 6 additional attack dice, and now you're at 18.
That's right, baby.
18, and the opponent is really not able to defend that well. But also, I mean, with the first option, you need to kind of be sure that you actually cause some casualties, that it's really worth it, so that you inflict, let's say, at least 3-4, I would say. Otherwise, you could better use bait or something like that.
Sure.
But there's these situations, where there's like I don't know, when the opponent attacked has 1 or 2 fatigue, has like a smaller unit, and you can just charge it, use a 1 or 2 fatigue to lower him, and really just wipe that unit.
Yeah.
And for that one, Falerica and Bait often then get the 6 guerrilla markers and good to go for the opponent's turn.
This is the frost thing on top when you wipe out those fatigued levy. Yeah, it feels so good to kill them anyways, but this, it's like even your birthday cake or something.
Exactly.
Nom, nom, nom. All right. Now, on the flip side, 3 guerrilla markers for 6 attack dice. Seems decent. I mean, that's an activation, essentially.
Exactly. So you need to be sure that you don't need the guerrilla markers otherwise. So as I said, you often need to use the activation reactions to move out of range, because you don't have any defense die or anything that really protects you from being shot to pieces or something. So you need to make sure to go out of range, all these things. So that's why, I mean, I don't play it every turn, and it's situational, but it can definitely be worth it to make this one really strong strike, probably more at the later stages of the game. But can be really worth it.
And this is a way to, we got a couple more abilities to go, but where you're spending the guerrilla markers on your own turn potentially.
True. Yes.
Right. So,
and I mean, as I said, like, well, you don't have the activation pool, so you need to put some Saga die maybe in the first turn, suspend them then later, so that you have a really full board. And if you have, for instance, second wind, so really all the abilities lined up to gain a lot of guerrilla markers that you can go to, 8, 9, 10, then it's really worth it to also use Falarica to go then maybe to 6.
you can knock it down.
Yeah, like,
and then gain them back.
Be sure that you still have 1 or 2 activations for the opponent's turn usually. So otherwise you're too exposed often and
sure.
Yeah.
So do you have, so this is kind of making me think of the Yams Vikings, where your last turn is kind of a dud because you have to load up in such a way that your opponent, they can just give you the wrath tokens or whatever if you didn't set up in a certain way. So if you are going, trying to think here of the sequence.
Like if you have, for instance, the last turn, like if you're second player and then in the last turn, there's... Yeah.
So
I mean, you cannot build up for guerrilla anymore. So then maybe you have to make a charge. Usually, I mean, in the last turn, like, do you have to charge still? Like, is it still a close game? Am I winning? Am I losing? Do I have to invest something or not? And then, I mean, you gain 1, 2, 3 guerrilla markers with the other activations anyway.
Just by accident, using them,
Why not using them exactly? And then for 1 common, getting like 6 attack die is for sure worth it then.
Yeah, so gives you a way to use them on the last turn. Obviously, you're not trying to build them up on your last turn anyways, but some of these just give you markers when you're doing stuff that you would do anyway. So gives you an option. All right, cool. And it can be used for shooting too.
True.
So nobody likes getting hit with 12 attack dice from shooting.
I have not used it that often for it, but can also be worth it. Yeah, I mean, you need to check like that it can just be then really used with, I don't know, the levy that already gained 6. So because you can only double it.
Yep.
Or a very big unit of warriors with slings or something, or with another ability that we check later. But can be used for that as well.
Could be good. Yeah, nobody likes that, but I don't know. For me, I've got the Falata in one hand. I've got my Falarica and the other, baby.
But use it.
I got them crossed up. Gonna decapitate a man.
True.
Using both of them. That's what it's all about for me. So, yeah, you could even like a little smaller unit or something like that. Going from 6 to 12 in melee. Pop Falata. You could have a really tough kind of sacrificial unit there potentially.
Or even with like a levy unit that charges with a javelin. I mean, they only have 4 attack die, but then to 8 that can, if the enemy is not able to close ranks, that can really hurt. So especially thinking about guerrilla, that you often have the option to instead, when the enemy comes close, either to run away or to actually just charge.
Cool. Yeah, a lot of ideas here brewing on that one. All right, we got a couple more to go here. Surprise attack, 2 die ability, using a rare and a common. Orders till the start of your next turn, you gain 1 guerrilla marker at the start of each melee in which one of your units is the attacker. So this is both your turn and your opponent's turn.
Yes.
So another reason to charge those levy in, right? Get that guerrilla marker. Use attacker or 2 markers if a unit has no fatigue. So if they activate for a charge with no fatigue, you gain 2 guerrilla markers instead of 1. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Units that start their charge movement entirely within an area of uneven terrain get a +1 bonus to their attack dice. Ooh, baby. So the game of Saga, you pay 2 dice to get a +1 to hit. And you're paying 2 dice here. One's a rare, but you could have multiple units charging out. Now, do you do a certain yell or something when you
during the
are moving your models? Like
well, maybe Falarica. I don't know what it means, but I hope it's something scary.
All right, yeah, I'm thinking Falarica, Falata, surprise attack. I mean, it's 4 dice here.
I have to say, it sounds very good, but it sounds a bit better than I think it actually is, because it's
you have to be planning to charge multiple times.
Yes, and I think as an Iberian player, you read this ability and you kind of dream of this ideal scenario where everything is, exactly, the opponent units are exactly in place for all these charges, and you basically attack, and guerrilla markers can attack again, and all these things. I have to say these scenarios don't happen that often, unfortunately, where, all the troops are in the perfect position for that, and it's very, very situational. I have to say there's many games where I'd never play this, and
sure.
I mean, yeah, you get the +1 bonus, but you have to be first within uneven terrain. Often in uneven terrain are like the shooting units, so the ones that you may not want to charge with that much anyway. And then also the opponent obviously has to be in range, first of all. And when we think about the situation in the opponent's turn, guerrilla is you react basically after the opponent moved or charged.
Yeah, so you don't know for certain.
Exactly. He can simply not go into range, or if it was perfectly in position at the end of your turn, he can basically move that unit out of range, and then you cannot really do that anymore.
So you need multiple targets.
Yes, but that
really.
Obviously is another risk you're doing, because you're often vulnerable. You don't have much defensive ability, so you can charge you first, basically, and then you don't get any of those. I think it sounds way better than it actually is. It sounds so tasty when you read it and you think about, you have these one attack and then another one and another one, like a chain of attacks.
We can make it work. We can do it. We can still do this.
Yeah, Tristan. But it happened. Like I had one or two games where, it's kind of a game changer, where really you gain guerrilla markers, and 1 milli you gain also the +1 bonus, and then where you really have kind of a chain, and then it's definitely worth it to die, even though one of this it's a rare, but the opponent knows that you played this. So if he's very careful and knows how to play Iberians, he can handle this without happening much, and then the 2 die were not really worth putting there.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. This one's kind of a psychological play on your opponent. It can affect the game, because if they start within charge range of one of your units and potentially use knowledge of terrain to boost that, he has to stay more than medium away from certain units that at the end of his turn, or else you could pop this on your turn and do the charge on your turn and get the +1 to hit, so he's got to stay away kind of on both at the end of his turn. Yeah. He's kind of potentially got to, play against this, even if, you have no intention of ever using those die. Your opponent doesn't know that, maybe, that you never want to charge you out. So it's possible you could use it on your turn if your opponent is playing a little sloppy. Yeah. Depending on scenarios and stuff. Sometimes you just gotta. They have to come into range. You should have at least one attack in your turn already to also start gaining the guerrilla markers, because obviously in the opponent's turn a charge costs you 3, so you need to have first the 3 guerrilla markers to make the charge, and then you get 1 or often 2 back. But first of all, you need to have 3. Yeah, that's interesting. So on your turn, you spend 3 to activate the charge. It was a fresh unit. You get two back. So it only costs 1. So. And potentially, using Falata or ambush, you're back to where you started, So you still got full guerrilla capability.
True.
Online. A lot of interesting things going on there. Obviously, the dream scenario may not come often. Have you had a dream scenario where you had multiple?
Well, I would say that where it's worth playing it, I had scenarios. Otherwise it's too ideal. The issue is often you don't have any defense die, you attack, and obviously even you hit the opponent better and everything, but the opponent can hit back. So
Yeah, I don't know. I love playing Saxons, man. No defense dice for us, so I'm okay
I see,
with
I see.
with just going in raw.
I see, I see.
Okay. So right. So that's a place where the rare can go. I think
I mean, as
Falata,
I said, if you see really this ideal scenario, then yes. But it's very rare that I have to that I see it. So that it's really worth putting a rare here.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be like locked in. Like you're gonna definitely get a charge.
Yeah, it kind of
definitely two charges because this is like a
if you play
third or
this,
quarter or
that
half
determines the whole
of the
turn
dice.
and the opponent's turn. Like what will be done. Like it will not be about shooting anymore or moving away anymore. It basically is like, okay, I will charge or try charging as much as possible. And then I need to think, okay, is it really worth? I mean, yeah, with a +1 bonus, but make all these charges that are possible, maybe.
Yeah. So would you use it if you're not going to benefit from the +1? Have you ever used it just because of the guerrilla markers? And you're like, I'm going to charge 2 or 3 times next in his turn or whatever, so I can kind of get him back. Or
no,
you wouldn't. It's not worth it.
No, not really. I mean, that would be like, let's say 4 or 5 guerrilla markers that you gain with a 2 die, but one of them is a rare. Nah, I think it's not really worth it. And you commit to making these attacks as well. So no, I think you really need to have like one unit that is in uneven terrain, at least one that is able to make the charge.
So just very situational, because you're not going to load this one up at the start of the game because it might never come to pass.
Exactly.
So you really, it's got to be once the armies are engaged. It's on turn 4. You've rolled 4 or 5 Saga dice, and you did get a rare.
Obviously, then you don't get the rare in these situations. Like when you see it, like obviously, then you don't get the rare. But yeah, like it's a cool ability, and I think just having it, I mean, it's very thematic. I think it's together with coordination and so on. It's one of the most thematic abilities on this board.
Yeah, +1 to hit. I mean, nothing to snuff at there.
Yeah.
So I think your opponent has to respect it, but
exactly. I mean, you need to keep that in mind to maybe not go that close to terrain with vulnerable units and so on. So yeah, just having it is good, but you don't play that often usually.
All right, good. All right, we got to the last one here. Soliferum. Activation. Common or rare. This is the last place to park a rare unit without ranged weapons. So activate a unit or 2 units with a rare for a shooting attack with a range of M that generates no fatigue. Oh, I love these. Anytime you can use Saga dice to shoot with a non-shooting unit.
Yes.
It's like one of my favorite things. You gain a guerrilla marker or 2 if you use a rare. So that's just on top of this. So those warriors, no special equipment. Actually your horsemen, I guess, right? You don't have.
Well, the ones on foot without equipment, or the horsemen, or the Hearthguard.
Could be the warlord.
The warlord, yes.
Yeah, you get this stuff before. It generates no fatigue. That's the key point there. There's a few abilities that will do this, but don't still generate a fatigue, and so they almost never get played. So that's the key line there. So this can be a common or 2 for a rare. That's a good place to park a rare, right?
Yes. So actually, I mean, yeah, we talked about Falata being good, but I play way more often Soliferum.
It's the efficiency, German efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about efficiency, not about pretty play or something. It's about efficiency here. And yeah, like, I mentioned it before. You go often with at least how I play them. You use a Hearthguard unit, and then, well, either if you don't roll the rare, then you go with the levy with coordination very close to the opponent. Play bait to get guerrilla markers and so on, and then play Soliferum to basically, 6 Hearthguard is already 6 shots. The levy, or either other way is the warriors without equipment. So I play them often like 9 or 10, so that's 5 shots.
Mm-hmm.
That's already pretty good. So that's like in total 10 to 10, 11, 12 shots or something like that the opponent has to deal with. You get, well, when you roll the rare, 2 guerrilla markers. And yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, what should I say? I play that usually, well, very often. Not every turn, but very often, especially with the rare. That's often the first rare that goes here.
That's cool. Yeah, this is great. So, kind of a one issue taking 6 Hearthguard is you gotta kind of wait around until the time is right to unleash them. So sometimes you just they're just sitting there. They're not doing anything for most of the game. So that's why kind of Hearthguard with javelins and stuff are pretty nasty because they don't have to engage necessarily to do damage. So this kind of is ideal. You can shoot, and you're not suffering the armor penalty of having the javelins.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is great. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Hearthguard
the
Hearthguard I often simply use for, like, let's say they are a carrier. They carry the troops to the front line, and then you shoot with them as well, and so on, and then fall back. At least with the Hearthguard, because obviously they're very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, you bring every turn like 1 unit close to the front line or close to the opponent, shoot, and like it's this ability is a part of the game plan. So unlike others which you don't use every turn, so on this, in the normal scenario, I play kind of every turn.
Awesome. So yeah, move them up, shoot for free, no fatigue, and then you can plan on your opponent's turn depending on the circumstances. You could use guerrilla for the movement, but potentially, you could just move off in your turn and then potentially rest with guerrilla in the opponent's turn. A couple different ways to slice that cake. So we are we're not towards the end. We're at the end of the battle board abilities. So when we're talking about guerrilla, what's the average kind of breakdown here between guerrilla used for shooting, guerrilla used for movement, guerrilla used for charges, guerrilla used for rest? And it probably changes throughout the game. So we're it's going to be a pretty vague number, but you kind of talked about movement a lot. So are you kind of just using them to get the heck out of there frequently?
Sometimes, yes. The issue is a bit, well, like I mentioned, that the opponent basically has at least 1 activation before you use guerrilla. So let's say if you were using your Hearthguard and went into the L radius of, bow levy or something like that, you need to have another activation to put them out. Otherwise, they will get at least 1 shooting before.
Okay, so that's huge. Yeah, they always get at least 1 activation.
So if I have not charged in my turn, I try to stay out of at least 1 activation of the opponent in his turn, so that he has to invest, so that whatever he does in theory, I could move again out of his charging distance. But also he has to keep in mind that I could also attack him. And yeah, since shooting is a bit cheaper, so I often have 2 units of warriors with slings, and I quite often activate them only in the opponent's turn. So I don't activate them that often actually in my turn, because there I need to get the guerrilla and all these kind of things. And I think you try to have in a game with the Iberians kind of encircle the opponent a little. It's good if you can pull them to you and then shoot them here and there the whole time. And it's maybe not much to shoot like with just 7 warriors, but it's, really chipping damage here and there.
Yeah.
Like 1 warrior here, 1 levy there, 1 Hearthguard here. two warriors there, like one after the other. And so for really moving and charging, I really just do that when I really have to. So when I really think about, okay, I have to move out of charging distance and so on. But if the opponent is not that close, I basically try to shoot as much as I can. Obviously, each unit can just shoot once. But yeah, I use it at least once, usually for shooting.
Yeah, so I think the board, really kind of rewards you for kind of doing like a combined arms type approach. Manage, some dudes on foot, some shooters. But you could see, if you want to be a shooting type of guy, you could give it a shot, because you could shoot on your turn, shoot on the opponent's turn, and not have the fatigues, so kind of double firepower without your own detriment of having to figure out fatigues and stuff like that. But you can use second wind. You could see like just a shooting plan,
True.
Shoot twice and then shoot again on the opponent's turn, and you're getting a lot of shots out there. I mean, there's probably issues trying to use that approach, but I think you could probably, pardon the pun, give it a shot, Tristan.
Yeah, I could. That's true. Like, I mean, I think there's several ways how to play them. As you said, it's always a bit mixed warband. Like, I mean, just having coordination forces you to kind of have infantry and cavalry, and since it's just a good ability. But yeah, you can either have a more shooting focus, let's say. But obviously, I mean, when you go to a tournament, you can have like 3 points of warriors, 3.5 points of warriors, or something like that. And then either play them mostly with no equipment or play them with only slings or something like that.
Yeah,
a bit depending.
Swap them out and see what works. So you've got the flexibility there. So this is cool. Cool board. Is there any particular mercs or anything you like to run with these guys?
I think there's
what their options
they only have one option, and I think it's the Balearic Slingers. I think they're called like that. And so it's basically a warrior unit with slings that when you're within medium, you double the attack die.
Yeah.
So I think themselves are an okay mercenary unit, but obviously you cannot use guerrilla with them. So yeah, I never really thought about using them. I think they're not really worth it. I think it's better to have the option with warriors with slings yourself, and that's way more flexible, I would say.
Just kind of looking at the board here. I mean, they could benefit from second wind.
True.
They could, like shadows, they could benefit from, but missing out on a lot of extra.
Yeah, all the guerrilla reaction, basically.
I don't think anybody rates the Balearics too highly in the first place. So best to leave them at home on their island.
Yep.
So
exactly.
All right. Cool. Well, do you have fun playing the Iberians?
Yes, for sure. Like I like these guerrilla type war bands which are very squishy. Where it's a lot about, or where it's very, very important of how you move, because, you're so vulnerable if the enemy actually reaches you. I enjoy that a lot. I think I would not say that they're very weak. I mean, there's some debates about after the FAQ and so on.
The FAQ definitely weakened.
They weakened them for sure. Like all abilities that were changed basically got less good.
Just activation reactions in Saga are very powerful. Your opponent has to allocate all their dice. Typically, they're locking themselves into a plan. There's multi-activations or things that give them some flexibility, but they're locking themselves into a plan. You see that plan, and you can use whatever plan they come up with. You're not locked into what you're going to do. You can spend these guerrilla markers across your entire army, no matter what, wing or It's not like you're committing to certain units. If they go after the left side, you can move back to left. They go after the right, move back to right. Depending between their mix of levy, Hearthguard, warrior activations, they're locking themselves into certain plays that you get to see. So,
and just having the option of making one move or charge at the end of the opponent's turn to either charge without the opponent being able to react, or put a unit in position or something like that for your turn, then can be so powerful.
The last one of the turn, charging in. Their turn, your turn, you rest, you're fresh. Well, let's charge again.
Yep, exactly.
So, obviously, I've never played these guys, but any activation and reaction warband rates pretty highly in my book. Maybe
they're fun to play. I think
veterans.
They're challenging, but yeah, definitely fun to play.
Probably more of a veteran warband than a beginner.
Yeah,
would you say.
You need to know the opponent's battle boards for this. You need to know how far they can move and how far they can charge and reach you and all these things. It's so you really need. I mean, with some other armies, let's say that are a bit more defensive, you can put, I don't know, 4 or 5 dice at the same position on your battle board, pump up all these defense die, and it doesn't matter that much when you make a mistake, because you can just put a lot of, close ranks, get, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 defense die. But they can't. They usually, most of the units can't close ranks. You don't have any defense die. So when the opponent reaches you in a moment where you didn't expect it, the unit might be gone, basically.
It's sad times.
Yeah, it punishes mistakes, let's say, way harder than some other warbands.
Cool. Well, like every faction review, at the end of it, if I want to play the army, it's a good one. I mean, it happens about 95% of the time. But this is one. Yeah, I want to give it a go. Give it a try. That's cool.
Do that for sure.
I got the slingers, the Carthaginian slingers. I can port those over. I need some Iberian allies for the Carthaginians. So
that's how it
starts
at that age, right? Many play like Carthaginians, and then I don't know. You either go the Numidian route or you go the Iberian route. I guess.
I'm closer to Numidians, so it's probably those guys first. But I'm definitely more interested in the Iberians than the Gauls, for example. Just I don't know. Gotta paint in chariots. It's tough sell for me. I
agree.
So this is a little easier to get going. So very cool. So you're feeling pretty good about what opponents do you struggle against? Is the Iberians, or a play style that really gets your goat?
So I think, I'm just talking about Age of Hannibal, not worth going to Alexander or something like that. It's good when you are the more mobile faction. So, for instance, playing against the Romans there, the Italiots, is quite good because you have the advantage of usually being faster, and they don't have that much defense against shooting. So there really works with having these chipping damage here and there. When they try to reach you, can fall back and so on. Carthaginians are tricky to play because they're simply, you never really know what to expect. They have so many equipment options and so on. With the elephant, usually you can deal quite well simply because of having so many smaller activations of shooting.
You're not worried when you see an elephant across the board?
Actually, I'm fine with the elephant.
Are you licking your lips at anticipation? You say, please put an elephant down.
It's a very juicy target, let's say, because it's also slow, so it almost cannot really reach you. I think the biggest threat there is, and in many warbands, is this, one levy unit with bows. Like this L radius. Often you need to try to stay out of there, at least with the vulnerable units and so on. So yeah, and the Carthaginians have like an ability where they can shoot very strong, do not or ignore cover and all these things. So yeah, that's a bit tricky. And Numidians are there's pros and cons, because against them, it's a bit tricky to get the guerrilla markers because you need to get close to them usually, or for getting guerrilla markers, you need to get close to the opponent, which is tricky against such a mobile faction.
Yeah, I mean, they could just withdraw back to their table edge.
But on the other hand, he always when he wants to use javelins, he always needs to come closer than M to you. That also means you can basically charge him before he throws his javelins. And, well, javelin warriors do not like to get charged. So
yeah, I mean, they're squishy. So if you can somehow get in, you know, it's going to be a good day.
So it's an interesting matchup.
Coordination,
for sure.
You know, you could run them down with coordination here.
Yep.
I mean, you could potentially do big moves with coordination. So there's got to be an S of each other and unit coherency. So you could see a unit effectively, you know, it's in a blob on one side of the horsemen. They move the L. I don't know where I'm going here with this, but must end this movement. It is got to be with an S, so they're not repositioned. But you could do some big movements with those guys. That's a way to hunt them down.
Yeah, true. So there's some good matchups.
Your horses are target number one for those Numidians too.
Yes. So you need you need to be really careful in all games, basically, with the Hearthguard. Like I'll use them. They're kind of key in the game plan. So you need to be careful with them. And obviously, it's kind of tricky to hide from a warband that can basically move 3M or something.
Can get wherever if you're not completely encircling your horsemen.
But then you really need to play with terrain and all these things, you know, like create tunnels or and so on. So, but it's a matchup, like I would say, even, and yeah. So I think they have a chance against all the factions in Age of Hannibal. It's often a bit depending on the scenario, you know, like you, when they have sometimes issues holding the specific objectives for a longer time. They don't like to stay in one position. So that's a little tricky.
I don't know if it's a blanket rule or in a fact or certain scenarios, but typically they don't let you react while holding the objective
as well.
Most of the time, maybe not across the board, but many events you will find that is the case. So is not working towards your goals here.
Exactly. And you have some of it's kind of custom made scenarios nowadays where it's about really like holding some objectives in the middle.
Hanging out. Yeah. And hanging out next to you. You got to be there
to put I stay there close ranks and get defense dice. Not possible.
Oh yeah, it's interesting because you can always move to the objective towards the end of their turn.
That's actually true. So it depends when you score.
Pay attention, you know. It's going to be scenario dependent, but there's always that option there. Yeah, I just like the kind of the chaos of not doing what is expected of you with those guerrilla markers. What do you use for your guerrilla marker tokens or whatever? What are you using to represent them?
I mean, in the beginning, like when I started, I was simply placing like 2 dice in different colors on there, but then I got like some specific, it's not marble, but like glass markers or something like that.
Okay, cool.
For that. Yeah, and I think some people also use coins or things like that.
Okay, cool. All right. Wow. Yeah, this is a fun discussion. Thank you for volunteering to do these, guys. I think in fact took them down a peg in certain ways, but I think still a lot of fun to be had here. I'd love to give them a try myself. I mean, you're playing them currently, presumably having fun with them, and good faction to check out, and definitely something the Carthaginians can step into, or if you have some Iberians, you can get them going the Carthaginian way too. So a lot of battles open over there in Spain during this time, so definitely get them out there. And thanks for coming on. Hopefully this isn't going to be the last time we see you, but
Well, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. And if you at home there have played against or with the Iberians, let us know how it goes. Maybe Monty can chime in here. He's sworn off him after the fact. He got beat pretty good at Acon. Swore off him. So
he should give it a shot again.
Yeah, let's see if Monty will chime in here with his thoughts, or anybody else. I think definitely a lot of potential with these guys. Want to thank Patrick, Sean, Mitchell, Scott, Frank, Britt, DJ, and you, Tristan, and the rest of the Saga Thursday patrons. Wouldn't be doing these faction reviews, all the extra videos. We're going to be doing an extra video or a video every week this year without the patrons. So really appreciate it. And hopefully you guys do too with all these Saga videos. But I think that's going to be it for this one. We will catch you next time, buddy. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Saga! If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.